Good morning, Pat Flynn here, and today we're going to be talking about 5 mind-blowing things that have happened since starting a podcast. And I know many of you this year are thinking about starting a podcast, or perhaps you've started one already, and you're looking for words of encouragement, you're looking for a little advice and understanding of what can actually happen if you do this thing. Because truth be told, starting a podcast is not necessarily push-button easy. It's not like setting up a blog or a website, which also is kind of hard, but you also have to put your voice behind it. You have to put it out there into the world, and that's sometimes very scary. And I remember back in December 2008, yes, December 2008, I committed to starting a podcast. I really, really wanted to get one out there. It was a podcast that, in fact, changed my life. My first episode didn't come out until a year and a half later. A whole year and a half later. And it was because I was scared, I was frightened, I was nervous about what people were going to say. Were people even going to listen? Were people even going to like it? There were all these demons going through my head, as we often have when we're trying something new. But today I wanted to fast forward potentially what might happen if you actually just commit to it and get it done. I'll talk about some of my first podcast episodes and how difficult they were, but what got me over those hurdles. And now looking back, wishing I didn't wait so long, because it's truly been life-changing and absolutely mind-blowing. So thanks for joining me today. I appreciate you. Welcome, everybody. If you're here live, say hello to your friends. If you're here watching the replay, hashtag Team Replay in the comment section. Let's get this party started.
This is the income stream to help you achieve your dream. All while we keep it clean. This is the income stream. It's the kind of show where you can come and go, but then you leave inspired with no fee required. The income stream with Pat Flynn.
Awesome. So first of all, we have a very special person in the room today who we have to wish a happy birthday to. His name is Elton. Elton, we just want to say happy birthday to you. As soon as the song is over, I'm going to play your favorite sound in the world because you request it all the time. And then we're going to get into some stories. And stories are great because they can help provide context and have everybody who's listening to that story relate to what is happening. And I have a lot of fun things to share because podcasting has definitely been life-changing for me, to be honest. It's been a part of my life and still is. And the reason why this is coming up today is there's a couple reasons. First of all, happy birthday, Elton. That's for you. So happy birthday. The reason this is coming up is because yesterday on Clubhouse, we talked about podcasting quite a bit. I was in a room with over 1,000 people in it. If you're not following me on Clubhouse yet, if you do have access to it, at Pat Flynn, I'm approaching 20,000 followers there, which is pretty crazy. But I'm having a great time discussing and talking about certain topics with people in real time, which is the cool part about it. There was a discussion about whether or not Clubhouse would ever replace podcasting. And many podcasters in the room were quick to say, no, that's not going to happen because podcasting is, in fact, something that is on demand. It is something that if you record a podcast, you can have it play or be helpful for somebody and valuable for somebody later. And this is kind of the interesting thing that happened. So to start off with, yesterday on Clubhouse, there was a person who came up in the room, again, in front of 1,000 people. And he basically said that he had heard an episode the other day that I recorded 6 years ago, and it completely changed the course of what he's doing in his business and his life right now. Just happened to listen to it very recently, but this was an episode that I recorded over 6 years ago. And this is the huge difference between podcasting and Clubhouse right now. And who knows what's going to happen with Clubhouse. I hope it doesn't get to the point where a lot of other social media platforms are, which is like they're all basically starting to blend and look the same. I mean, YouTube now even has shorts, which are trying to compete with Reels and TikTok, right? So are we going to see that on Clubhouse one day? I have no idea. And so right now, anyway, this isn't about Clubhouse, but the idea being podcasting in its evergreen nature is pretty incredible. We still look at our stats for episodes that were published over 10 years ago, because I've been doing this for nearly 11 years. It'll be July 2021 will be, in fact, 11 years of podcasting, which is pretty crazy. Over 1,700 episodes, 65 million downloads. And it was something, like I said, I wish I had started sooner because I was so fearful. I was so scared. And if you'd like to learn more about the technicalities of this and some other things as far as getting started, I do have a webinar, a free training happening at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern today. If you just go to patflynn.com patflynn.com/webinar. You'll go ahead and find it and sign up there. There's only 1,000 seats available at this training, and there are already 3,500 people signed up. So make sure you come in early if you can. patflynn.com/webinar. And that way you could sign up there. So that's kind of the first mind-blowing thing, just how, and we forget sometimes, and I think sort of if you aren't in it, you're like, yeah, of course. Well, but I mean, with all these real-time platforms coming out, social media, obviously, you got to be sort of present to be available and heard and to be seen and to have a discussion with somebody. But a podcast is so incredible because it can last for a very, very, very long time. And like I said, I'm not going to mention this person's name or mention any details, but this person's life is now forever different as a result of a podcast episode that he listened the other day that I recorded over 6 years ago. And to me, that's absolutely mind-blowing. I mean, really, there's never a point in time where you can have this kind of connection with somebody not in real time. Now, there's obviously things that we can get access to that were written a long time ago, and books, obviously, and blog posts and videos that were recorded. And those things do have the same kind of effect, but truly there is no better way to scale intimacy than the power of the voice. And the reason why I'm excited about Clubhouse, similarly to why I have been excited about podcasting, is because of the passive nature of consumption of this platform. You got to realize that you have to be here watching this video right now. And to get the full experience, you have to be watching, right? So you can see these things. And again, mind blown, and these notes and things that are popping up on the screen. And if you're listening to this, you might feel a little left out. It kind of removes from the overall experience. But on a podcast, it's built specifically for audio. Clubhouse, it's built specifically for audio. But people can listen on the go when they're in the car, when they're in the kitchen, doing dishes, when they're on traveling in some way, shape, or form. Chad, if you're here live with me right now, let me know where you listen to podcasts. I'd love to give you a shout out and thank you again for being here. We got Celine in the house, Bernard, Karma Cashflow, Samson, Martin, Stephanie. We got Chris, GTO, Kathy, John, Mai, Elton. Happy birthday again. Uncle Bill. Uncle Bill says, on the side, lurking today, will not be in chat, will be with Kat all day. Great stuff as always, Pat. Looks like last week for Frankie, 20-year-old Kitty. She's a fighter. Well, we wish you and Kitty the best. Wally, what's up, Wally? Good to see you, my friend. Gabriella, Martin. Martin, by the way, is crushing it with this podcast. Are you over 1 million downloads yet, Martin? I know that ever since starting to listen to the income stream, you've definitely put pedal to the metal with your show, and especially with the topic and what it does for people. I mean, you're helping people with mental health, right, Martin? So the beauty of this is not just the episodes that you record now are for your subscribers that are subscribed to you now, which you've now accumulated a lot, but they're for the people who will find you next year. They're for the people who will find you 3 years from now, 5 years from now, right? Especially with a topic that's that evergreen. I mean, not all podcast topics can be useful in an evergreen fashion. Like if you were to do a recap of the sports that had happened over the weekend, go Pack Go, by the way. I don't have any other football. There's no teams here in San Diego. Like I have to pick somewhere outside of San Diego. So I apologize if you're not a Packers fan, but I'm a big Aaron Rodgers fan. I went to school with him. I was there when he was quarterback and Marshawn Lynch was the running back. The very famous Marshawn Lynch, sort of like him driving around the cart. I was there in the stands watching that unfold. It's pretty crazy. Martin, 1.5 million? That is insane. Congratulations, man. Congratulations to you. 1.5 million. And you find that, your start, obviously, Martin, and many people's starts, it's kind of slow, right? Kind of slow to begin with, but then you start to ramp up, right? People start to find you and they start to share you around. You start to get involved in the search engines in a way where the algorithm is in your favor, and it just takes some time. So I want to congratulate you, Martin. That's amazing. What's his face says, what's up, Pat? What's up? What's your face? Good to see you, Shonda. Good morning, everybody. Karen says, I filmed my new year, i.e. since my first since 2012 YouTube video yesterday. Podcast is next. Amazing. Amazing job. Wow, 1.5 million. That's incredible. So first of all, the evergreen nature of podcasting is something that's completely underrated, and this just happened yesterday. Again, if you're coming in late, I'm telling a story about how a person on Clubhouse yesterday was telling me that a podcast episode they listened to the other day kind of changed their life. And this is an episode that was recorded 6 years ago, which is pretty fantastic. So that's sort of the first mind-blowing thing, just the evergreen nature of podcasts, the ability for you to create really deep connections without having to be there in real time. The intimacy of the voice, the emotions that can come out in your stories play a huge role in this. And every podcast episode you come out with, like this will be the final point here on number 1. Every episode you come out with is like a seed that you plant, right? That's the universal sound for seeds. You're seeding these things that can then grow into something that can be fruitful for you later, right? I'm trying to be pithy with my conversation here, and it's not really working out. These analogies don't often work very, very well, but I'm trying. Dude, very cool, Martin. Yes, Scooby Life. As a consumer, how are you designated in time between Clubhouse, YouTube, podcast, work, home, etc.? So the cool thing about Clubhouse is, in fact, I can listen on the go, similar to podcasting, and I found that I've, kind of flipped between the two. But again, just-in-time learning is something that is still very important to me. And as far as Clubhouse, because it is new, I am experimenting with it. You know, my 20% itch rule, allowing myself 20% of time to experiment or play with something else, 80% of the time to do the things I need to do. Well, my 20% right now is based on Clubhouse. So I'm spending about 20 to sometimes over an hour a day on Clubhouse in a very specific window of time after the kids are asleep to fit it in. And who knows where it's going to go later, but at least I'm committing some time to it now. But it's contained because there are people, trust me, there are people on Clubhouse who say, oh my gosh, it's already 4 a.m. in the morning and I got to go to bed and wake up 3 hours from now. I got completely lost in this. And that's both good and bad. It's bad because these people are going to be not healthy if they keep doing this. I think we need to create boundaries around our time because our time is precious and our mental health and our physical health is important too. But at the same time, it's a good sign because people are getting completely obsessed with getting on Clubhouse, which means more access, more possibility, more opportunity to help, right? Okay. So that's number 1. Plant seeds and understand the evergreen nature of podcasting. It's unreal. And an episode that you recorded years ago might just kind of be dormant for a while until that topic, because of whatever's happening in the world, becomes something massively important. And it can become something that can be a resource for everybody even years later. So that's number 1. Okay, number 2. Let's get into another story about podcasting and what it can do, not in an evergreen nature, but more of a connection with your audience and just how kind of silly that connection can be sometimes. So I was at an event, this was several years back, I want to say 4 or 5 years ago. It was actually, I think, the 2nd or 3rd year of Social Media Marketing World in San Diego. And I was on the Hornblower. The Hornblower is sort of this cruise ship, small one, not like a Disney type or a Royal Caribbean or, Princess cruise ship. It's more of a just kind of a bay. It's a lot smaller. But you go on there and you can kind of rent a dining table and you can have your dinner catered and you can bring your spouse and have a nice anniversary dinner type of, thing around the bay for a few hours, and you kind of sail around the bay and it's pretty cool. But the Social Media Marketing World Conference rented out this entire boat, and they invited the members and the creators and the entrepreneurs and the social media people who were at this conference onto the boat, right? Which was pretty cool. And so we're all chilling there and there's dance music and stuff. So it's a little loud and people are having drinks and I'm sipping on my water, and I hear from across the room, literally from across the room, I hear this woman go, Pat Flynn! Like she's yelling because it's really loud, right? So she's like, Pat Flynn! Big baby Pat Flynn. I'm like, big babe, like I see like my friends who are near me were looking at me very strange and they're like, oh no, here comes a crazy person, right? Like, uh-oh, crazy person alert, watch out. So, I feel safe because we're around all these people and this woman looked very friendly. So I went up to her, her name is Jennifer on her name tag. And I come up to her and she goes, hey Pat, oh my gosh, I'm a big fan. Thank you so much. I appreciate you for all your episodes and your podcast is awesome and your blog and your resources. It was been really helpful. I'm a big fan. And I go, so why did you call me a big baby? Why? I had no idea what the heck she was doing that for. And she told me in her full embarrassed face that, with a fully embarrassed face, that she apologized because she thought I would know what she was talking about, but I didn't. But she said that she remembered a very specific story, or in fact, it was actually a fun fact that I mentioned on my show, that I was an 11-pound, 12-ounce baby. Yeah. I was a big baby. 11 pounds, 12 ounces. I haven't grown much since then. I just have a beard now. And the reason why that was what she said first was because that was the thing that was most memorable for her. And that's because she also had herself a giant baby. And yes, I was 11 pounds, 12 ounces. I set a record at the hospital in New London, Connecticut. I don't know if I still have that record, though. I'd have to go check, but I was a big baby for sure. The other funny part about this story is my mom's only 4'11". So I don't really believe in geometry or physics because I don't know how that was able to happen, but it happened. Anyway, so we got talking, and I come to realize that that small micro moment in that story that stood out to her was really important. And this is where I started to come up with this idea of, we just need to put more of ourselves out there. These little fun facts about ourselves, these little things that, we often overlook or don't think is important. Well, on the surface, it's not important, right? What does having the fact that you are a big baby matter to your podcast or helping people with entrepreneurship or whatever niche you're in with whatever content platform you're on? But it has everything to do with just getting people to know you. Because the truth is that podcasting, or any platform really, should be about not the B2B or the B2C, but the P2P, the person-to-person relationship, as my good friend Chris Ducker always says, right? The person-to-person relationship. And when you consider this platform of podcasting and its ability for you to connect, I said connect, very strangely, connect, there's just, again, nothing like it. And even these little micro stories can be something that a person can remember. And when you tell and share these things, and many of you know now that I was a huge baby, you're going to remember this. And you might find me in person, and you might, before I even shake your hand or fist bump you or whatever, you're going to be like, hey, Pat, big baby. And I'll know exactly what you're talking about now. And a few people have done that ever since I've told that story. They've just come up to me and say, what's up, big baby? And I know that they've heard this story, and I can connect with them, right? Which is pretty cool. And they've obviously connected with me. So the ability for you to make a one-on-one connection from small little things that you say is the second most mind-blowing thing to me about podcasting, right? Because a lot of times we write stories in blogs, or we might even share something in a video, and it just, for whatever reason, it just kind of passes over people's heads. But these small little things on a podcast, when a person is in their daily life, I think it's because they're in a comfortable space in their home. It's not like they have to turn something on and start, reading at their computer. It's not like they're at a conference and having to turn everything on as far as consumption. They're in their comfort of their own home, or in their commute, or at the gym, in a moment where these little things that they're listening to, where there's no exit button. There is literally no exit button. They have to take out their phone to stop the podcast, which is why podcast listening time is incredible. This is how we can get so intimate with our audience. And I would encourage you to, when you start your podcast, or if you have one already, talk about yourself a little bit. Now, obviously, don't talk about yourself the entire time, and you want to make it relevant. But in little moments, like in the beginning of your show or throughout the middle, if there is something that you are connected with, or that you're a big fan of, or that you just are, that's a part of you, don't be afraid to share that. I mean, I got people who are like, hey, Pat, Back to the Future, right? I actually, just the other day, I got 5 or 6 messages from people who showed me a clip that somebody had posted about a little Easter egg in Back to the Future. This was the one where in the beginning of the movie, he goes to the mall. It says Twin Pines Mall. And then at the end, at the end of the movie, he goes back and it says Lone Pine Mall. And that's because when he went back into time, he actually crushed or killed one of the pines. So those twin pines became one pine. So Lone Pine Mall. Anyway, I had 5 or 6 people reach out to me and go, Pat, did you know this? Did you know this? Did you know this? And it's because they knew I was a fan of Back to the Future. And of course, when I answered, they were like, oh yeah, well, of course you would know. There's so many fun little things about that, which is cool. Wendy says, and this is perfect here, our brain absorbs more when we are relaxed, right? I would agree with that for sure. I mean, there's different parts to it, right? Because sometimes our brain not necessarily absorbs more, but is more focused when we are pressured. So I think there's different components to this, right? So anyway, the idea that you can share something so small that a person on the other side of the world could remember, to the point where when they come up to you in person, that's the thing they say first. That is amazing. That is so underrated in my book as far as the power of the voice and the ability for us to connect. I have some people who reach out to me and they're like, yo, marching band, fellow marching band nerd, right? And immediately we can have a conversation because we have that thing in common. Or if somebody's went to Cal, they'll say, go Bears. And I'm like, dude, you're my best friend right now because go Bears, right? I learned here about Lone Pine Mall and Back to the Future. Yeah. So if you watch Back to the Future again and make that connection, it's a fun fact to share with other people too, right? Cool. Hello, C, says Cynthia. What's up, Cynthia? Good to see you here. Grandma Goody in the house. Cooking with Kibby. Nice. B-Roy says, hey, Pat Flynn, I sent you an email last night. I hope that you get some time to read it. P.S. I was born in Bristol, Connecticut. That's cool. Fun little fact. Thank you for letting me know about that. Sweet. Did you send it to pat@patflynn.com? If you did, I will check it out whenever I have some time today. Thank you. Appreciate you. Grandma Goody says, yes, humans need to find connections and commonalities with other people. Indeed. That's very true, Grandma Goody. So that's mind-blowing thing number 2. These small little things can be something that we could be remembered for when it's behind our voice, or, and YouTube is a part of that too. But again, with the intimacy of the voice and the relaxed state of the listener, typically in an environment where they're most comfortable, it can really stick for sure. And as we all know, it's about the KTL formula, the know, like, and trust formula. And when you can get people to KTL you, to know, like, and trust you, and again, it takes time, but that time is definitely fast forwarded in an environment like when a person's sitting comfortably in their car and you're speaking to them about the thing that they're interested in or in a language that they can respond to. It's absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. Clementine, I finally made it to the live stream and not the replay. Hey, I'm so thankful that you made it today. Celine says, I collect owl-themed stuff. That's awesome. That's so cool. All right. Let's move on to mind-blowing thing number 3. Now, one thing that I cherish completely, and you know this, even yesterday, or was it Sunday? Sunday, I started out the stream by sharing a lot of fun thank you notes that I got from many of you who are here watching the stream, which is just, I'm so thankful for that. Some gifts, some amazing words, and kind words of thanks, and some funny things as well. I even got a stocking from Santa, thanks to Bill, Uncle Bill. Well, I, over the years, have collected over 2,000 to 3,000 thank you notes. And I have them in piles in my office. I have a board over here on the other side. Let me see if I can even show you this right now. Can you see that right there? That is a wall of thank you notes that I put up. And that's just a small fraction of the thank you notes that I have. This white box behind me here is full of them as well. And it's my favorite thing. It's my favorite thing in the world. Not because I'm like, oh, I'm so great, I'm so awesome, send me a thank you note. I don't even really ask for them. This to me is not an ego thing, it's a service thing. If I can get to the point where I'm helping people so well or so impactfully that they would want to actually sit down, crack open a letter and a pen and write to me, that's insane to me, especially in this day and age where it could be very simple to just send me a thank you on social media. And I keep and collect those as well. I have a Gmail folder for thank yous that come in. Now, why do I collect these things? Well, number one, I collect them because if I ever get into a down moment, if I ever have a little bit of a struggle, if I'm not feeling something that I know I need to do, I just go, okay, I'm back. Right? Because I know now that the work that I'm doing is actually not for me. Am I going to let my fear get in the way of me actually serving other people? That's why I feel like I'm put on this earth, to help and serve others. That's why I'm a 3 on the Enneagram, and why exactly when I get recognized for things that I do to help others, that lifts me up and helps inspire me and motivates me to do more, right? So if ever I'm struggling, I just go, yeah, okay, we got this, right? And I just go. And so my goal when I serve is to get to the point where a person's going to sort of try to figure out how to get my address. And now there's some easy ways to find it. You can see at the bottom of my emails, or you can just email Jess on my team and she'll tell you. But the thing is, when I look at these thank you notes, out of the 3,000 that have come in since I started blogging in 2008, and my business started in 2008, here's the interesting statistic. 95% of them mention the podcast. That is ridiculous. So I was a blogger. That's mind-blowing, as you can see. That is ridiculous to me in such an amazing way. 95% of these thank you notes mention the podcast. It makes you think. Is that because through the podcast and through the podcast alone, we have been connecting in a way that other platforms aren't able to connect? Is it because the podcast is the number one thing that people have used to essentially find their way to me? I think it's a combination of both. But at the same time, based on what we said earlier, I think it's the connection as well. And the ability for when you get that many minutes in front of people to get to the point where you can help them and they are inspired and they can get motivated, they can potentially get motivated to the point where they would want to write you a thank you note, right? 95% mention there's something to that, right? Some of them even mention very specific episodes. Most of them just mention a thank you for the show, or your podcast has helped get me through something, or whatever the case may be. Podcast. I remember when I first started my blog, this is another good story. When I first started my blog, this was at the tail end of 2008, smartpassiveincome.com came about, and I had been blogging diligently and consistently 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Just never missed a beat for a while. Then I got thrown off because of a hater for a while, and then I got back on, and I'm not going to tell that story right now, but many of you might remember that. But I was a blogger, right? And then comes the podcast. Even though I had wanted to start for a while, I was always scared. The tech part of it was a little bit harder. But I got to the point where I finally mustered up the courage to get started. My first episodes were terrible. I recorded the first one 3 times because it was so bad. But I put it out there anyway, knowing that, well, at least it's out there and I can always make improvements on the next ones. And I did. But I went to this conference. It was the very first conference that I went to, and this was just after the podcast came out. And I knew that there were going to be a lot of people in sort of my environment, my business, blogging, podcasting, creator space at this conference. It was called Blog World Expo, and it was in Las Vegas in 2010. So I'm walking around, and I have a few friends with me who I got to meet because we planned ahead of time that we were going to meet up for dinner and just hang out. And then I remember walking around, and I saw a few people who recognized me. And this was very strange. This was the first time I had ever gotten sort of recognized in person for something. But I kind of expected it because I knew a lot of my fans and blog readers were going to be there. And they, of course, saw my picture on my blog and whatnot. But I go to this conference. I get stopped in the hallways every once in a while. And every single person who I spoke to was thanking me for the new podcast, was pointing out something in a story that I told. A story that I had told recently at this point was a story about how when my wife and I had our son, that we didn't have insurance. This is a story, and again, podcasting is a perfect platform to tell stories. I told a story early on in my podcast about how when I had gotten laid off and I became an entrepreneur, my wife, she stay at home to take care of herself and then later the baby. We didn't do a very smart job of transitioning into that. And part of that is because we just were never experienced. And what I mean is we didn't have insurance. Now, we tried to get insurance after we found out that we were pregnant, but we couldn't because pregnancy was a pre-existing condition. So we were very much struggling to try and get things to work, and just no private insurance company was willing to work with us and help out because they knew like we were going to have to pay bills anyway. And we, of course, it's just, that's the way it was. And then I found a loophole. And the loophole was that I could hire April in my business. I could put her on payroll. And as soon as she is on payroll, even as a pregnant soon-to-be mom, that wouldn't be a pre-existing condition anymore. We can get her insurance. Everything was lined up. My son was due January 15th, and her employment was going to start January 1st. So we're good until December 23rd when my wife's water broke. And when my wife's water broke, I couldn't think of anything else but how much money we were going to have to pay, which is very sad. It's supposed to be a very awesome moment. And especially with the idea of my son coming 3 weeks early. Would he be in the NICU for several weeks because he was a preemie? Every day in the hospital was like $8,000 to $10,000, which is just insane. So that was the story I told on the podcast early on. And Sherry, wow, you are incredible. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. Super supportive. Thanks for being you as well. I love that sticker, by the way. It's a cute little peach. Holding what? A littler peach? So I told that story, and again, the sort of point of that story was how my business saved my life, essentially. Because thankfully, my son was born, and we took him home 2.5 days later. We still owed $22,000 to the hospital, but my business that I had started in the architecture space online, helping people pass a little exam, paid for all of it. And yes, when you are paying out of pocket, they give you a little bit of a discount. So instead of $20,000 a day, it was like $12,000 a day because they're not billing it to insurance. But we definitely learned our lesson, and that was a huge lesson for people listening, something they can connect with. You can put yourself in that situation. True story. Well, anyway, going back to this event, 4 or 5 people came up to me and were like, man, that dude, you're so lucky that, you had this business, or, it's incredible that Keone only came home 2 days later, and they like knew him by name now, and he was only just born. And again, that power to connect. Every single person who I spoke to talked about the podcast and the stories that I told. I podcasted every other week. My show was bi-weekly. Is bi-weekly 2 times a week or every other week? I always get confused with that. It was Fort Weekly. Fort Weekly? Again, trying to be pithy, not working out. That's two for today. But I was blogging 3 times a week. So in my head, I'm like, okay, everybody's talking about the podcast, and it's only every other week. But the blog, I'm blogging 3 times a week. Nobody's coming up to me and saying anything about that. Nobody's saying, oh, that blog post you wrote about 5 tips to use Facebook to create a landing page or something. Never got any of that. All the stories that I told in the podcast that people had remembered, right? Fortnightly. So kind of crazy. Nana says, greetings from Accra, Ghana. I was in Ghana 6 years ago, and it was one of the most beautiful countries I've ever been to. Some of the most beautiful people. The SPI community here had actually built a school, and my family and I built a school there too. There is actually in Ghana, in the middle of Africa, there are 2 schools, one of which that serves thousands of students now, says, brought to you here by the Flynn family. It's like on a plaque. I don't even know if they know even what that means or who I am. Probably, and that doesn't matter. And there's another one that says, brought to you here by the SPI community. So cool. What's up, Tim? Good to see you. Bi-monthly. Fortnite is every 2 weeks. Really? A fortnight is every 2 weeks? No way. Fortnightly? How about a score? Every 20 days. A score is 20 days, right? That's why 4 score and 7 years ago is like 7 years and 80 days. 4 score is 80, right? What's a league? Or a nautical mile? Why are they all different? Anyway. So, these thank you notes. Again, the impact that your storytelling can make on having a person remember, having a person take the time and effort to actually write you a thank you note, pretty amazing. And again, it's this right here. All these thank you notes are a result of the podcast. That's insane. I just can't tell you enough. I'm shaking the camera because I want to get this in your head. The podcast is incredible for doing that. Okay. Oh no. You know what I'm oh-knowing? I hear the garbage man behind me. And I didn't think he'd come today because of the holiday. I hear him out there, and I didn't take the garbage out. Okay. There we go. A score is a grouping of 20. That's why days, he says, 4 and 7 years ago. I don't know. Okay. Well, hey. So you should start a podcast is really the big lesson here. If you want to get more training a little bit later today on this, I'm going to go in depth with how to get started, a launch plan, all these things so you can knock it out of the park. If you go to patflynn.com/webinar, you can sign up and register. Make sure you come in early. It starts at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, because there's only 1,000 seats available, and we already have about 4,000 people signed up. So it's going to be a huge training. We're going to have a lot of fun. I'm going to give you some advanced strategies to help you so that if you're just starting out, you'll be that much more ahead. But also I'm going to give you some foundational stuff so that even though if you even have a podcast already, you'll be able to maybe pick up some stuff that you didn't get on the run. GTO says, run, Pat, run. You've taken out the garbage before. We'll just talk. Okay, wait. Maybe it was on the other side of the street. Dude, it actually might be, I actually might be able to get it. I'll be back. So, didn't even have shoes on. But we made it, chat. We did it. We got the trash out in time. Thanks to you. Woo. All right. Let's go, baby. Let's go. It's going to be a good day. Thank you, chat. So, we're going to go over these last two mind-blowing things rather quickly here. We're going to end a little bit early, in fact, because I have a meeting in preparation for today's training. Again, if you want to check that out, patflynn.com/webinar. You see what happens if you're just feeling a little bit lack of energy. Just go outside, run around, take the trash out, come back, boom, energy. Yay, there we go. All right. Oh, that was fast? I thought it was slow. I think I have, like, some dirt on the bottom of my socks, though. Trash talk, that's right. That was fun. You guys were here. You were this many days old when that happened. No, what am I saying? Okay. Number 4, let's talk about the next mind-blowing thing when it comes to starting a podcast. Something that was really, really impactful for me was, bottom line, the podcast has helped generate a significant amount of income. I mean, we're talking 7 figures of income. Now, not all of it has come from advertising. Not all of it has come from even course sales or anything like that. A lot of it has come as a result of the podcast supporting the brand in a way that adds the know, like, and trust factor to then get to the point where people can then trust an offer that may or may not come right away. Maybe it comes later. But the podcast is an amazing source of a touch point that then can lead to an offer down the road. There are specific episodes that have gone very, very well that have indeed directly made income. And I'm not talking just about advertising and sponsorships as well, but I'm talking specifically about a certain episode. In fact, episode 275, I invited 3 of my course students on the show, and it just absolutely blew my mind. We had made over $150,000 with that one single episode. Rob, Polish Rob, thank you. Always appreciate the wealth of information and tips, and I try to slowly transition to full-time Pokemon. Nerve-wracking, but fingers crossed. Dude, you, more than anybody, are hustling, and that's 80% of the game, right? Because even though you might not always hit the nail on the head, you have more opportunity to see what does work, to develop your style, stuff that often can take people sometimes years, you're going to be able to figure out in just months. And the fact that you're already incorporating a lot of the things that you learned here is actually, Chad, I was on a live stream with Polish Rob yesterday, and he told me just real quick that he's been incorporating a lot of what he's learning here. He's told some stories. If you were here earlier, Rob, you've obviously heard me tell several stories here too. And the connection that you can have with your audience is really great. And Rob, there's a ton of people doing Pokemon right now, which is both a blessing and a curse. But it is great because when you start telling stories and you start being yourself and you just start to really soak in what is working for you, you stand out like a sore thumb in a great way. And you already do that to me. So keep up the good work, Rob. I appreciate you for the super chat. That's awesome. Rob Squad. It's Rob Mob, I think, isn't it? So, okay. So the opportunity for you to generate an income from your podcast is very real. Right? And there's a lot of podcasters who are like, you know what? I don't want to ever make money from my podcast. And I'm like, why? Do you not want to better serve your audience, potentially even improve the production quality of your show, maybe even use some of that money to go and reward yourself if you want, or even offer something back to your audience? I mean, you should be making money with your podcast. That's not goal number one. That is the byproduct of goal number one, which is to show up, to serve, to provide value, to have people connect with you and build a relationship with them, right? So that's mind-blowing thing number 4 is the money opportunity with podcasting, especially now with more and more advertisers coming in. Man, there's a lot of money being spent in the podcasting space. So let's recap these 4 things, and then we're going to go into number 5 here real quick, and then I'm going to end the stream a little early today because I have to head to a meeting. But we got number 1, the ability for your evergreen episodes, your stories that you've told years ago to pop up and still matter today. I was on Clubhouse yesterday and somebody brought up the fact that they listened to an older episode the other day that changed their life. And that was an episode that was recorded 6 years ago. The conversation happening right now in the chat, this is for us here now. It's going to be useless for people years down the road. Even a live stream like this, it's not going to be as beneficial to those who are watching it live, but a podcast episode that is built specifically for sort of not real-time listening and consumption can go very, 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 very long for you, and that's incredible. Number 2, I told the story about the big baby, me being a big baby, that connected with somebody, and that little random tiny little fact was something that somebody then connected on and held on to, and that was awesome. Thank you notes, right? The impact and connection that you can make. These are all thank you notes. I have 3,000 plus of them. 95% of them mention the podcast. It's absolutely mind-blowing how much that matters. Number 4, money. Yes, your podcast can make you money. And we've made over 7 figures as a result of the podcast, both directly and indirectly, or combined, if you will. So sponsorships, selling courses and stuff, but also the idea that I'm just building trust. And when you build trust with people, that is the ultimate form of currency online. Time, attention, and trust. TAT. Cool. So get tic tacs. I don't know what I'm saying. And then finally, number 5, most of the people who I have a business relationship online, and several of those business relationships turn into life friends, have been a result of the podcast. Truly. The podcast is a perfect excuse, if you will, to invite somebody on your show, to have a chat with them. And you can't help but become friends with people when you talk to them for that long. It's incredible, especially if there's a vibe, especially if you're connecting and serving the same group of people. It's absolutely incredible. Collaborations, whether you're a YouTuber or a podcaster, are so important. They can absolutely be life-changing for both parties involved. And we have people like Gary Vaynerchuk, Tim Ferriss, Donald Miller, Amy Porterfield, Chalene Johnson, huge names that are in the entrepreneurial space who I've been able to connect with and build a friendship with as a result of the podcast. But more than that, being able to build a relationship with people who many people have never heard of before. You don't just have to have celebrities on your show. You could have anybody on your show and build a relationship with them. So use your podcast as that powerful platform to connect with real people, right? So one more thing. If you want to check out the training for podcasting later today, that's happening at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. If you go to patflynn.com/webinar, again, patflynn.com/webinar, can't wait to train you. Get you some more specifics on equipment, software, hosting platforms, as well as marketing strategies so you get found even on day 1 when you launch your podcast, even if you don't have an audience. So more on that, again, coming later, patflynn.com/webinar. And we are going to, yes, I can text with Tim Ferriss now, which is pretty crazy. I don't abuse that power, but I do use it every once in a while. All right, chat. Thank you so much for today. I appreciate you. Thank you for all the support and the super chats. This was amazing. If you are coming in late, watch the replay. This is a very valuable episode. And again, come check out I hear the garbage man now. He's coming. He's picking up the trash we brought out together. And that's what we do here. We take out the trash and we enter, cool, fun thing to say there. Anyway, I'm so excited for today. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much. patflynn.com/webinar if you want to sign up. Peace out. Have a good one. And as always, Team Flynn for the win.
This is the income stream to help you achieve your dream. All while we keep it clean. This is the income stream. It's the kind of show where you can come and go, but then you leave inspired with no fee required. The income stream with Pat Flynn.
All right, y'all. Thanks again for your support. I appreciate you. Tomorrow we are starting at 7:30 a.m. Pacific. Again, 7:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 a.m. Eastern, because it's my mastermind meeting day, so we're going to start early. But hey, 311, one of my favorite bands. Tomorrow, 311. Thanks so much. Take care. Peace out.
Bruh.